In this video, you're going to see a couple months worth of work condensed into about 20-ish minutes of two Carbon series guitars being built. I typically build guitars in pairs. This is going to be two different guitars. If it looks confusing to you, it was a lot more confusing to me probably. I'm using my new joiner here. This was a really good purchase. Gets everything nice and flat and straight. This neck is mahogany. It's 3 pieces of glued up mahogany, so the grain is all pretty much where I want it. Using some laser cut templates that I designed and had cut out, I can work out the neck and the headstock. It saves not only a ton of time, but it gets me some really accurate lines I can work off of later. While everything's all nice and square and straight, I'll route a channel for my 2-way truss rod, and this includes the access and the headstock, and also for the carbon fiber rods that run parallel to the truss rod on either side. Now we get to take the neck over to the Laguna bandsaw, which is one of the greatest things I've ever bought in my entire life. I love this tool. This blade is dull. Don't judge me. We're just cutting off the face of the headstocks of both necks. You can kind of see that we get 2 necks out of 1 neck blank. It really saves on a lot of waste, but we're just lopping off that wedge, and then we take it straight over to the edge sander, and we get that nice and flat, as square as we can. And that gives us our headstock angle, which is really critical geometry. After that, we are right back to the Laguna, just to cut off the rest of the excess, get these necks out of this big chunk of wood. We don't need it to be square after this step. We're going to basically cut everything that we don't want on the neck off within reason at this stage. And this is, the Laguna really shines here. It's just chewing through everything I feed into it. Yes, it's dull blade, but it's mahogany. It's relatively soft, but even the harder woods, maple, padauk, wenge, it does great. Here's that wonderful router template that I used to draw out the profile onto the neck blank. I'm using it to actually route out the profile now. It looks like it's just hanging off into space. It's in my vise. You'll see more of that vise later on. You'll also see more of my dry hands because I'm not a cinematographer. Obviously, the original width of the neck blank is not wide enough for my headstocks, so we're just going to glue on some pieces, which is always a joy because they get really wiggly and slide around when you have glue on them, but you get it done and it's all good. And you just have this big paddle after you've put all these clamps on it. And then some more footage of the Laguna being an amazing tool that can do anything I ask of it. You literally just cut out the shape of the headstock. You glue up extra wood and then you cut it out. That's kind of all there is to it. Then, with our handy dandy router template, we can just stick it on with some double-sided tape and then use a flush trim router to route the shape. That's it. No spindle sander, no files, nothing. It's just a template and a router. And this trim router gets a lot of use on my guitars. And then before we've taken the template off the headstock, we're just going to drill the tuner holes right through with a 10 mil really high quality brad point bit. Here's the first instance of carbon fiber actually going onto the guitar. It is a 1/2 mil sheet of carbon fiber that has an adhesive backer that I'm using for the first time. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, but it just sticks on and it really stays put. And then we can just flush it up with the same trim router. And with that very same trim router in a different bit, we're going to route it for binding. It's worth mentioning, absolutely wear a respirator when you're working with this stuff. It's so nasty. You can almost definitely hear my air filter running in the background now. I have to filter the air whenever I'm routing this carbon because it's such awful stuff for your body. But just binding glue in the binding channel in between the plies of binding, otherwise they won't stick. And then you just stick it down with some masking tape. This is the StuMax stuff. It works pretty well. It's a black outer ply and a white inner ply. Really framed in the carbon and the fretboard wonderfully. I could not be happier with how this binding came out on these guitars. Now with just a few dabs of super glue, we can put the carbon fiber rods in. This really strengthens the neck. I've been including them in my guitars since I think around 2020, and they tend to just hold their setup better. The necks are much stronger. I think they really matter. Obviously, they get held in better when the fretboard is actually glued on, but these dabs of super glue just kind of keep them in place while I'm handling the thing. Here also is the two-way adjustable truss rod. That's a low profile design. I put these in every neck. Now we just cover the whole thing in Type Bond 2. I like Type Bond. I don't want to use epoxy because it's frankly just a mess. And Type Bond, it's wood to wood with the mahogany and the ebony. It does a really good job. Now these days, I am putting indexing pins into the neck so that the fretboard doesn't have any chance of sliding around on me while I'm clamping up. It wasn't an issue when I built these guitars, but I figure if I can eliminate one more degree of movement, it's probably a good idea. Now for one of the more tedious parts of building guitars, radiusing the fretboard. This neck here got a 16-inch radius. It takes forever. Ebony's really hard. It's very abrasion resistant. It doesn't sand very quickly. This is just a 16-inch beam with 80 grit sandpaper on it. Now after that, you just got to glue in your inlays. These are mother of pearl dot inlays, just 1/4-inch dots. And you just super glue them in, hit them with some accelerator, and then guess what you get to do next? Right back to sanding. That's right, there's a lot of it. Now we get to press in 24 Jescar stainless frets with our J. Edwards fret press. Side dots are nice and easy. It's just a 3mm hole that I drill out and then I put in my lumen lay in. All my guitars get lumen lay side dots these days. It's just a stick and you put it in the hole, super glue it in, accelerator, you get the drill. Now I'll usually spend a whole day or two carving a neck. For the convenience of this video, it looks like it's like a 10-second clip. That's pretty cool. I wish. I'm carving a bunch of flat facets into the back of the neck and kind of splitting the difference between them, and eventually you get a pretty rounded shape. And after you've carved several necks, you more or less know what you're after. Everything gets really kind of rounded over by the sandpaper too. But the volute is one of my favorite parts. I love carving volutes. If you can look at the shape you have and visualize the shape you want in it, it's not that hard to actually get a really good result. And draw some construction lines. I'm using my Iwasaki files here, and they make short work of this mahogany. I mean, this really didn't take me that long. And now you get to see how wobbly my workbench is. I really don't notice it when I'm working, but I see it now. So I did not get any footage of me gluing up the bodies. Sorry about it. It wasn't very interesting. I'm using some templates here to do the neck pocket, which matches with the neck template that we used earlier. This is the body template that I have laser cut again to my designs. It really makes it so much easier just to have these templates. Everything is the same and very exact every time. And now we get to put carbon fiber on the bodies. You can see this adhesive material that's on the back. This comes from my supplier. It worked pretty well. I'm not entirely sold on the adhesive. I think I might go back to just using glue, but it really does just stick on, and then I flatten everything out, and that's it. And once again, when you're routing all this carbon, you need to be wearing a respirator. This stuff is so bad for you. I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, because some of you kids out there will be working with carbon fiber, and you're going to really regret it later on. Routing the body for binding is the same process, same router bit, same router as the headstock. I did not get any footage of me putting the binding on the body because I didn't want to. But I did get footage of me scraping a section of it, so you can see that it is there and I did it. And now you get really dusty and you get to route all the cavities in the guitar. Control cavities, pickup cavities, spring cavities, Floyd Rose cavities, all of it. You just get covered in mahogany and in this case, carbon fiber. And also still using custom made laser cut templates to my design. Now is a big moment. We get to glue the neck in. All of our hard work is going to either pay off or really bite us after this step. But we were okay this time. Just 2 clamps, bunch of wood glue. That's it. Everything indexes in really well because of the templates that we used earlier. Now we get some more carving and filing action. This is the Shinto saw file. Back to the Iwasaki files. The heels are tricky to carve, but it's very important that you get really good access to those upper frets. And, you know, they got to look cool too. Now, we've got this wonderful ebony fretboard that we've sanded to 3000 grit. We don't want to mess it up at the next step, so you got to cover it with tape. If you don't, it's going to be a really bad time. Once we're all masked up, you just want to put some Sharpie over every fret so that you can see any low spots in the leveling process, which we're doing right now. If you don't level your frets, you're going to go to jail. I don't make the rules. That's just how it is. Now, I cut out almost all the finished sanding. I don't like doing it. I don't like watching it. But here's just a few clips. Now, not a lot of the paint process gets filmed. I don't want to cover my camera in paint product. That'd be a nightmare. This is the sanding steel that we use. It goes over all the raw wood. It seals the grain, gives me a great surface for putting color and clear coat on later. This is the last look you're going to get of this wonderful mahogany. It looks really great. Kind of a shame that we painted all of it yellow and white. And here's what we do with it. We just sand it all back. Looks terrifying. It is kind of terrifying, especially on the carbon. But this is just 320 grit on a pneumatic DA. Some of the tricky spots, like the headstock, you got to get by hand. You really don't want to go through the sanding sealer, exposing more wood grain. You want a very thin film of it, but you got to get all the orange peel out. And now here you see the fruits of your labor. This is color coat and clear coat. It gets knocked back and the logos get put on, and then it gets a top coat after this. I didn't film it because I didn't want to. Now it's time to do some fretboard prep. I like rolling my fretboard edges with a razor blade. It gets all the excess clear coat off the edge there. And you roll it over a little bit and then hit with some micro mesh. Makes a really nice smooth transition and a much more comfortable neck. All right, we're masking up the fretboard one more time. I promise. Last time. Now, if you like sanding and sanding and sanding and sanding, you might want to get a job polishing stainless steel frets because it takes absolutely forever. I took these from 320 grit all the way up to 12,000 micro mesh. This is basically a full day of sanding, and that's not even it. It's not even it. Now, this is all cool, but the real difference maker in this process is the Dremel. I have been to shows before where I'm pretty far back in the audience and I can still look at the guitar player and I can see how polished their frets are. They reflect all their stage lights, and I was just shocked the first time I saw it. These people's frets are super nice and shiny, and it makes a huge difference in how this guitar feels to play. And we're done. Look at that. Polished frets. Pull off your masking tape, reveal all your hard work. You've done it. But that's not all, because we got to oil it now. I use Howard's Feed and Wax. I've had this bottle for about 10 years and it's still like half full. Just a little bit. Rub it in with a paper towel. Let it soak in. The ebony does want to soak in some of this oil. It's never had product on it before. And when you wipe it off and buff off the excess, you have a magnificent looking fretboard. Well, now it's time to put these things together, and you get to start with one of the most infuriating things on earth, copper foil tape. It works out though. Both of these guitars got EMG pickups. I love EMGs. The plug and play system is okay. It's fine. I don't hate it. It can just make for a somewhat messy control cavity. You can't really plan it out the same way you can with traditional pots and wires. But hey, it works. Now, I really prefer to use hip shot locking tuners on my guitars. I think they're probably the best in the industry. And locking tuners just make string changes so much easier. After that, really, it's just the last couple of screws, and then all the hardware is at least put in the guitar. Now, this might look a little scary. Sandpaper with strings on the guitar, but the strings really tell you when to stop sanding the nut. The nuts are oversized. This is a Graphtec Tusk XL nut. You really have to cut them down to be a comfortable shape, and then you just polish it up with micro mesh and sandpaper, whatever you want. Now, after months of hard work, there's just one step left. Get some new strings on this guitar, get it set up, playing really nice, and get it over to my buddy Charlie Cash so he can shoot a demo. So, enjoy. Thanks for sticking around and watching the whole video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye.